All right, guys, welcome to another edition of Life and Whatever Else. We are here at the studios of the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and we are shooting today's show minus a couple people. Well, at least minus one for sure, our co host, Carlos. He is not here. He has some duties that he had to take care of that he couldn't get out of. So he is taking care of those for today. And Christina, who was with us last time, she couldn't make it today, but she will be back in the future. So don't worry, because I know all of you guys who were watching, I know you guys liked her. So she will definitely be back. Unfortunately, just not today. But for today, I am here, Eric, and I'm here in the studio, and I'm just going to hit on a couple things today. It's going to be an abbreviated show today because we have a couple less people. So, yeah, it makes it kind of tough to do a show like this, but hey, it is what it is, and you roll with the punches and you roll with, who's here, and you get stuff done. But anyway, I also want to send a shout out to my man Shams, who's in the control room helping me out today. Came through on short notice to help out with the show, so I'm really appreciative of that. Shams, thank you very much. Um, but yeah, so basically, just talking about what's going on in the world. We got the presidential race going on, which has been pretty interesting stuff to follow. I think, as we all know by now, the Democratic and Republican candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, have just wrapped up their conventions. Republican convention in Cleveland, the Democratic convention in Philadelphia, and both were very, very interesting to follow and to see what goes on. I'm normally not a convention, really not really a political. Excuse me, gotta scratch my nose. Got a little itch there, but I'm normally not a very political person, to be honest with you, but I just had to touch on these conventions because there's so many things that came out. I mean, first of all, you had, Melania Trump speaking on behalf of her husband, Donald Trump, and she gave a speech that I guess sounded good to some people, but afterwards, it was discovered that a majority of her speech was basically plagiarized from a Michelle Obama speech. So, of course, everybody has had a good time with that. Um, there was also, tons of celebrities, I guess. They are celebrities, but, they're probably washed up celebrities at this point. Scott Baio, Antonio Sabato Jr., and they had Dana White there, president of the UFC. Now, I am a UFC fan, but I must say, having Dana White speak at the Republican convention, I don't know if that's necessarily the forum for him or for anybody from the UFC to be speaking, but he spoke, and it was a lot of weird stuff, a lot of I guess you could say fear mongering coming from the Republican convention, basically talking about how the United States is in serious trouble. It's the worst time that we've ever had, and everything needs to be fixed, the whole 9 yards. And, that came to an end. And then last week we had the Democratic convention, and, at the Democratic convention, there was it was I guess a lot of people were surprisingly patriotic. And at the convention there was, a lot of different speakers, a lot of, President Obama, Michelle Obama, who delivered a terrific speech. Bill Clinton spoke, Chelsea Clinton spoke as well. And it was really a well done convention in comparison to the Republican convention. And I'm a novice. I'm a political novice. I don't really understand a lot of political stuff, but I must say that the Democratic convention came across like a convention for sane people, whereas the Republican convention just came across as pretty crazy. Um, but yeah, the Democratic convention. One of the main stories coming out of that was the Khan family. Like I said, I'm not political, so I believe it was the Khan family. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Who the mother and father of their son actually went to war for this country and was killed in war. And they spoke at the convention and basically, called out Donald Trump for a lot of the things that he said about Muslims, how he would ban them from the country. And they spoke about some of the, I guess you could say, hateful things that Donald Trump has said. And it was really, what came out of it was that Donald Trump basically attacked back and started to talk about, you know, that the mother, she couldn't talk, maybe that was because of her religion, all this and all that. And it's a big story because it's just amazing to I think everybody that a presidential candidate would speak the way that Donald Trump did about these people. They really didn't say anything that I thought was out of line, and I think they didn't say anything that a lot of people thought were out of line. I think they just kind of commented on what Donald Trump had been talking about his whole campaign, and Donald Trump reacted, and a lot of people in the Republican Party have begun to maybe start to turn their backs on him because of his comments. I've heard Chris Christie come out and denounce his comments. I've heard John McCain say that he shouldn't have said what he said, but he did. And now we have to keep on hearing about Donald Trump and everything that he says. I mean, I'm shocked that he's a presidential candidate. I think months ago, I think we all laughed it off and thought there was no way that he would become a presidential candidate. But he is, and we have to continue to, I guess, roll with him. And hopefully he doesn't become president. I have to admit that. But we'll see what happens in November when the elections come around. And that's that pretty much, at least on my part. I don't know if I can continue to talk about the elections that much more, at least until they actually happen. Moving on to some other stuff. Let's see what's going on out there in the world. The Olympics are coming up. Opening ceremonies will be Friday. Sometimes the show airs late, so for all I know, this show might air after the Olympics, and if it does, well, I hope you guys enjoyed them. And hopefully nobody at the Olympics got sick, nobody got Zika, nobody got anything like that. The Olympics down in Rio, I guess, have been, to this point, kind of a mess, and they've barely started. They say the water is polluted, that anybody that'll be competing in events in the water are basically competing in, sewage, which is quite shocking for an Olympics. Normally, you would not associate those type of problems with the Olympics, but unfortunately, we have that. Today, I'm shooting the show, and yesterday, as we all know, the Zika virus is a big topic going on. There are a lot of people who have withdrawn from the Olympics due to their concerns over the Zika virus. And one thing that was interesting was, like I said, who knows when the show will air, but Hope Solo, the U.S. women's goalkeeper, she had posted on her social media account pictures of her bug spray and her measures that she's taking to prevent getting the Zika virus. And during her first match where the U.S. women were playing New Zealand, and they won 2-0, they booed Hope Solo every time she had the ball. Every time she was anywhere near the ball, they booed her. In fact, there were people who actually chanted Zika at her, which is it's actually kind of comical to hear that. But yeah, so that's a main story, and to be honest, it's almost kind of sad that so many people are talking about this. Also because the Zika virus, it was just discovered that there have been, I believe, like 15 new cases discovered of the Zika virus in, I think, in the Miami area. It was like Miami-Dade area, I think. And there were like 15 new cases of the Zika virus. And um, it kind of shocked a lot of, I mean, there were a lot of people, I think, who were trying to figure out how to contain, the virus. And it just goes to show you, I think a lot of people are making a big deal out of the Zika virus and Brazil and saying you shouldn't go and you shouldn't do that. But I mean, it just goes to show that even if you think something is contained in a certain area, it doesn't mean it can't spread. And I think that while it is a concern, 100% for the athletes, I think it's a concern for anybody. I also think it's something that you can't, um, in a sense, I guess, blow out of proportion. I think sometimes they're just things that you have to let people take care of them to the best that they can. And sometimes they'll be able to, sometimes they won't be able to. But, um, I think sometimes you just have to let it go. And it's unfortunate that this is becoming an issue. It's unfortunate that there's so many issues down in Rio for the Olympics. But yeah, you just have to kind of roll with it and see what happens over the next couple weeks. Hopefully nothing bad happens, nothing serious happens. Hopefully there's no terrorism at the Olympics. There have been lots of terrible, terrible acts of terrorism. It's sporting events, it's just events in general. Bastille Day in France, somebody decided to take a truck and just run people over and shoot and kill people. That was shocking. There's so many events. So hopefully the Olympics goes off without any major hitches, and hopefully a lot of people's concerns will go unnoticed, I guess you could say. One funny story is actually a Japanese gymnast he ran up a bill actually of about $5,000 in roaming charges because he was playing Pokemon Go. And that I found that story pretty hilarious because obviously, as everybody knows, Pokemon Go is a game. It's a online. It's a phone game. It goes to show you, like, I don't really play phone games. I don't really use a lot of apps on my phone, so it goes to show you how I'm like out of touch with the lingo or whatever. But it's basically a game. Everybody goes out and hunts for, Pokemon all over. And it's funny because this whole game is funny to me because I think the concept of the game was to get people out and get people moving. But it's turned from, I think, a game that was meant to get people moving and, have fun while doing it to all of a sudden an obsession for so many people. I mean, it's so crazy to go around and see so many people hunting for Pokemon all over the city. In fact, there was one night where everybody ran into Central Park to find all these Pokemon, and I'm sitting there saying, "Oh my goodness, this is such a mess. All these people are sprinting into the park. Probably never been there at night before." And they're just running into the park looking for all these Pokemon, and apparently it was one that got them a lot of points or whatever it is. And so they all decided to just sprint into the park and go search for Pokemon and everything like that. And it was pretty intense that they did that. And pretty funny as well to watch all of these people with their phones. Because keep in mind, when they have their phone in their hand, so it's not even like they're looking up. They're looking at their phone, trying to get this Pokemon, and they're bumping into each other, bumping into walls. The transit authority had to issue a warning to people to not like walk into the tracks, basically, because so many people were looking at their phones. I mean, I don't know what to think about this, but what's also funny is that they've also discovered that there was a story in the paper the other day about a sex offender who was, I guess, he had on the Pokemon game, I guess you can have like a Pokemon gym, or I don't know how it works exactly. So I need somebody to explain this game to me. But apparently, this sex offender, he was like a Pokemon gym, so it would attract all the people to his house. And I was saying to myself, it's not a shock to see something like that, considering that this is a game that so many people are infatuated with. It's almost as if it's asking for people like that, unfortunately, to do stuff like that. So, for anybody playing Pokemon out there, hopefully you guys stay safe. Hopefully you don't, wander into the wrong neck of the woods looking for these Pokemon. So, hopefully you guys, pay attention and, you know, don't get yourself into trouble. Don't get yourself run over either, please. People walk into traffic all the time. It's a mess. Um, but let's see here. Moving on. Talk a little sports here for a little bit. Um, baseball. The season's going on. Um, just had the trade deadline. A lot of trades, a lot of people moving around to new places. The Mets picking up Jay Bruce, still not hitting though. As currently I speak, they're playing the Yankees, and they've not done that well against them. So hopefully that changes. Um, Football training camps are starting up. Giants, Jets getting back into the swing of things. Um, Football season's coming up, and I believe the first preseason games. I believe the first preseason game is this weekend. I think it's a Hall of Fame game, and then the following week, I think all the teams get back into their preseasons. I gotta yawn. I'm tired. For anybody wondering, I'm tired because sometimes I come in here and this fancy studio that we have in here, I set it up on my own most of the time. I don't like to, I have people helping me out, but I like to kind of set things up so that they don't have to do too much. And sometimes I'll come and I'll set the studio up, and when I'm done, I'll be all proud of myself, but I don't want to go to sleep because I had to move all this furniture. It's a heavy couch. This is a pretty heavy couch, and it's not necessarily the fanciest couch. In fact, I want to get something, and I want to show this off to the people out there. So I'll just be right back. I just want to grab something real quick. So I'm back, and here we go. I think you can see. I'll hold it up to the camera. We have a pillow here, which, in my opinion, does not go at all with this couch. You have a bunch of like beige, pillows and stuff like that, and then you have this ugly pillow. It's got flowers. It's red. It actually feels wet because like the material, it feels wet. It feels kind of gross. So I don't know if I want this here. And I'd love to make a plea to anybody out there. If anybody out there has a nice, sleek couch that they could donate or whatever to the show, email life and whatever else at gmail.com. Let me know. Show me a picture of it, whatever. If you just want to walk into the studio one day and, you got a couch that is not being used for anything, feel free to bring it in because we need some different furniture. But we stick with what we got for right now because this is what's here. So, but hopefully it doesn't distract too much from the show, especially when we get, Carlos back and we have, more people on. Hopefully you're paying attention to them and not necessarily the couch. But, so, I can't stop looking at this, so let me, just toss it to the side so that it's out of the way there. Let's see here. Moving on to some other things. I'm trying to come up with topics on the fly here because some people, since Carlos couldn't make it today, normally we have a nice little conversation about he's going to some concerts actually. I forgot he's going out to Coney Island to see something. So I think the Deftones, that's what it was. He's going to see the Deftones out in Coney Island. So, hopefully you can report back on that one. He's a big music guy, so he always likes to, tell us about the music and everything like that. Other things that are going on. Let's see here. Do, 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 do. Okay. So I have to say this. I am a big fan of Lucha Underground. It's a show on the El Rey Network. It's actually produced by Robert Rodriguez and Mark Burnett. Mark Burnett does Survivor, shows like that. I think he did The Apprentice as well. And I am a big fan of that show. And I must say that I love watching the wrestling, the Lucha Libre that's on the show. It's great. I love it. Everything like that. I will say, however, though, there are two people in particular that I am a fan of. That is Katrina, aka Carly Perez, and also Melissa Santos, the ring announcer for Lucha Underground. And normally, I don't do this. Normally, I just kind of talk and, I get in contact with people and, I ask them if they'd be interested in coming on the show. But I am almost pleading and begging. It would make my day if one of you guys could just come on this show one time. Now I'm in New York, so it's kind of hard, but we have a monitor back here, so we can, set up Skype or something like that and do an interview or whatever. But I would love to have one of you guys on the show. I am big fans of yours. Both of you are beautiful. Okay, that is a key point that I have to say. They are really beautiful. Okay, and they are, for me, what has made the show. For 2 seasons, about to be 3 in September, they have been my favorites. I love watching them. I mean, Melissa Santos with her energetic ring announcements. I love them. And just, Carly Perez, aka Katrina, she's hot. I have to say she's hot. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't agree with me. I mean, she knows what she's doing on screen there. Okay, and she does that lick of death and whoa, wow. Just amazing what she does. So I am basically right now putting out a plea. I want I would love one of you, if not both of you guys, to come on the show at some point. But please, I would do almost anything to get you guys on the show. I mean, we got a little show here. There'll be more people. So, and hopefully we get this show bigger and bigger and bigger. I understand if maybe you don't want to come on until it's like a really big show, but you could be on it when you could be the ones that make it big. Like, you guys could be the ones that, everybody will want to see, and then the show will be huge, and then I'll attribute a lot of the show's success to when those two came on the show. So as of right now, I am making a plea. Melissa Santos, Carly Perez, aka Katrina, if you guys could come on the show at some point, I would love it. Big Lucha Underground fan. So hopefully one day we can make this happen. Please. I would love it. All right. Okay, so I got that out of the way. Good. But yeah, Lucha Underground, El Rey Network. If you get El Rey, you guys gotta check that out. And hopefully this thing goes on for a long, long time because it's a really good show. So let's see here. Moving on, we got some other stuff. We're almost near the end of the show. Brock Lesnar. Yeah, speaking of, wrestling and all that, Brock Lesnar goes and competes UFC 200, beats Mark Hunt. Great story, making a comeback after, 5 years out. Makes a comeback, wins his fight. Really kind of I mean, I don't think it was domination that maybe people expected, but he kind of took control of the fight. Took Mark Hunt down a bunch of times, kind of held him down, delivered some ground and pound, won a unanimous decision. Then after the fight, it's shown that he failed a drug test. then shown that he failed a drug test the night of the fight. So, um, it was pretty. I think to a lot of people it wasn't shocking that he failed a drug test. I think a lot of people there was speculation about him, especially after Mark Hunt had said, prior to the fight that he was cheating, that he was juicing, and apparently he was. For the UFC though, they were lucky because after the whole John Jones fiasco and him not being able to fight because of failing a pre-fight drug test, they were able to have Brock Lesnar on the card, and he performed. But unfortunately, that was probably the last fight for Brock Lesnar in the UFC. I mean, he's, I believe, 39 years old. He's probably going to be facing a couple-year suspension for this offense. So I can't see him fighting in the UFC. Now, turn over to the WWE, and apparently, it was interesting because a lot of people thought that he was going to get suspended from the WWE, and there was a lot of speculation as to what would happen if he failed a drug test for another organization while under contract to WWE, because WWE now has a drug policy. They test now, and Roman Reigns, their top star, he got suspended for taking something. I believe it might have been Adderall that he took. He got suspended for that. So Lesnar goes through this, and WWE basically comes out and says that he hasn't performed for us since I believe WrestleMania. So there was no need to suspend him, and because of that, he will be wrestling in Brooklyn at SummerSlam in a couple weeks against Randy Orton. Should be a good match. I'm kind of glad that they didn't suspend him, that they didn't take action. He hasn't performed for them. I mean, it does set a dangerous precedent to say, hey, this person hasn't performed for us, he's part-time. But at the same time, also, if, as somebody pointed out on the internet, and I've seen a couple times, there's been rumors of Shaq potentially competing against the Big Show at WrestleMania. And if they were to test Shaq for something and he tested, what are you going to do? He's not a full-time performer for them. So it really is interesting to see where this goes and what happens with it, considering that Brock is not a full-time performer for the WWE, but he is, I guess you could say, an important performer. I think it also, makes people question wrestling, like they'll always question wrestling. How many people are clean, how many people are doing steroids, this, that, the other thing. Well, I don't know. WWE does test now, so it's probably cleaner than it's ever been at this point. I think a lot of guys are different nowadays too than maybe in the past, so it is cleaner, but that was a major story breaking over the summer. For the UFC coming up, and also Robbie Lawler lost his title to Tyron Woodley, which was an interesting fight. Robbie's been through some wars. I'm a big Robbie Lawler fan, so it was tough to see him lose in the first round via knockout. But, Robbie Lawler lost a tough fight, and, Tyron Woodley's the new welterweight champion. Other quick news, Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz going to rematch in a couple weeks. That should be good. It'll be interesting to see if McGregor will be able to bounce back from that last loss. And also for the professional wrestling, mixed martial arts crossover, CM Punk, aka Phil Brooks, aka CM Punk, will be making his UFC debut against Mickey Gall in a couple weeks at, I believe, UFC 203, which is in Cleveland. Card that's headlined by heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic against Alistair Overeem. That should be a pretty good fight. It'll be interesting to see who comes out on top of that one. The fight's in Miocic's hometown of Cleveland. So we'll see if he can retain his heavyweight title, and should be a good fight. But yeah, for now, I think we've kind of touched on a little bit of everything, a little wrestling, a little fighting, Pokemon, presidential election. Like I said, today was an abbreviated show. We were down a couple people. We were down Carlos, down another guest, but we will be bringing you some other guests. And check out the TV show. Airs on MNN. You can email life and whatever else at gmail.com to get the information for it. And, also hit up the email if you want to find out about our social media pages. Because if they're not up and running by the end of this episode, they will be up and running soon. We're going to post some pictures, some videos, stuff like that. Post updates about the show, where we'll be, what we'll be shooting, all that stuff. So, keep up to date with that stuff. Find out. We're just getting started here, so everything's moving at a steady pace, and we'll get to where we want to be eventually. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I'll be back along with Carlos, Christina. Who knows? A couple other people will be here, and we will see you next time. So until next time. Peace out. Thanks for listening, watching, whatever you guys are doing. Just keep tuning in. Keep letting us know what you want to see, and we will provide it to you. All right. Talk to you later, guys. Peace out.